on YouTube according to the computer.
We are good.
Okay. I'd like to call the work session of the Orange County Board of Supervisors to order at this time. Being that this is a remote meeting, I believe we have the same thing for this as we do the actual meeting, and that is give our locations. I'll start with Mr. Johnson.
I'm in Barboursville, Virginia, at my home.
Okay. Mr. Frame.
I'm at 103 Woodland Trail in Locust Grove, Virginia at my home.
Okay. Mr. White.
I'm at my home on Berry Run Road in Orange, Virginia.
Mr. Goodwin.
I am at my home at 11464 Rapidan Road in Orange.
All right. I am at my second home at 33 Pierpoint in New Bern, North Carolina.
Is it even legal for you to be in another state?
I already checked with our attorney and he said it absolutely was.
Okay.
I made sure of that. All right. At this point, like I said, call the meeting to order. This is a work session for the secondary 6-year plan. Ms. Simpson.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, today's work session serves as a kickoff of your annual process to review and adopt the secondary 6-year plan. The memo contained in the board packet provided you with a copy of the work session package put together by officials with the Virginia Department of Transportation, two of which it looks like we have joining us, Alan Saunders and Daryl Shiflett. So we have the work information in the work session package as a starting point, and we have the auxiliary list that you all adopted last fall and last year's secondary 6-year plan to accompany the work session package as the starting point. So I want to turn it over to folks at VDOT to go over some of the information in the work session package and provide to you their recommendations for advancing projects or adding projects or whatever they have recommended for you all this year based on funding allocations. So Alan or Daryl, not sure who wants to take the lead, but I'll turn it over to you all unless the board has any questions of me at this point.
Very good. Welcome, Alan.
Chairman Crozier, members of the board, good evening.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, and I apologize that I can't. That VDOT has outlawed Zoom, so I found an alternate tablet to get to the meeting this afternoon, but I can't share my screen. I'm on a tablet, and I'm called in on the phone line, which seems like it's working pretty well. Mm-hmm. And I understand that you have your secondary 6-year plan packet in front of you.
Yes, that's correct.
And in that packet, we have projected allocations that I'll quickly go over, our existing 6-year plan, and we have the auxiliary list that you provided from November of last year, and a couple of recommendations moving forward, and I can answer any questions that you have. So looking at your proposed allocations, these are future funds, even though we're preparing to adopt the next 6-year plan. The allocations that we're looking at are allocations that are FY26 funds that will be allocated to the projects that you determine on July the 1st, 2025, which is our first day of FY26. So in the draft plan, you have a combination of telefee funds and district grant unpaid funds. The telefee funds in the amount of $97,459, those are the funds that we receive from utilities that place their infrastructure within the right-of-way. And then those funds, the telefee funds, can be used for just about anything in the secondary system. The district grant unpaid funds are just that. They are formula funds that are dedicated to unpaid secondary routes. And we're anticipating $237,914 for a total allocation in FY26 of $335,373. So in the remainder of your plan, we have the existing 6-year plan that was approved last year. And across the projects that are in that plan, the last project identified is completely funded
Okay.
in FY25, which is Greenwood Road. So that first section of Greenwood Road that would get us from Route 20 to the new bridge that's currently under construction, past the new bridge to a certain point, and I'm not exactly sure what the address is, but it gets us south of that. And that is the last project in your plan, and it is completely funded in FY25. So the board has the ability or the opportunity to select another project. We could take another project from the auxiliary list. We can review the projects that are included in your packet, or if there's another need, like the combination of 617, 627, 701, the Battlefield Farms paving project that we recently completed. If there's another need in the community that we can serve with the combination with the Telefee funds, then we can consider that as well.
Okay.
And
Very good.
So we have about 100,000 available beyond what's in the plan for 26.
beyond what's in for 26, you have about $100,000 in Telefee, $97,459, and again, that can be used for anything. And then your district grant unpaved road funds, 237, about 238,000, that can be used for unpaved roads. Also in your plan, the countywide traffic services, what we call in countywide right-of-way and countywide engineering and survey, we have some funds, both future funds and current funds in those balance entry accounts that we can also consider for projects as well.
Well, I was just
So I
looking at,
keep those.
was looking at the fiscal 2025, and you've got 335,000 for that, and we're only using the 237 for Greenwood Road. There's another 100,000 left.
That funding, no, sir. Well, that funding was allocated probably, if you look a little further down on the last page of the secondary 6-year plan that was approved
Okay,
last year.
I see it.
Right.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
But to answer your question, yes, those are available. Currently, we have those rested in this countywide engineering and survey balance entry account.
But we could use that towards a different road project if we wanted to.
Yes, sir. I would need to check with Daryl to see what flavor of funding that is, that 97,000, whether it's unpaved road funds or Telefee funds. I think it's Telefee. And if it is, that means you could use it for any project in the secondary system for improvements.
Well, I'm just saying if that's one project, an additional project we could stick in the 25 category. Fiscal 25.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And we're also anticipating, we haven't finalized the Battlefield Farms paving and overlay project. And once all the expenditures and all the invoices are paid for that and the audit is complete, we're anticipating a surplus on that project too that we will pump back into your secondary 6-year plan. It would either waterfall to the next project in line that needs funding in FY21 so that we could advance that sooner, the next series of projects on the Route 602 projects, or we could tuck that into a balance entry account and let the board make a decision on how you want to apply it.
All right. Refresh me, Alan, what we had talked about for that little piece of Bushy Mountain Road that's right there across from Battlefield that y'all are working on, that there's such an issue trying to get up around that hill that it keeps washing out all the gravel. I know it doesn't have but 40 cars per day, so we're not meeting the requirement for that. But we had talked about something or another, and I don't remember exactly what it was.
what we had discussed on Route 626 was paving the eroded section between 627 and 636. And there is a section between River Road and then the section right there, Battlefield Farms, that is unpaved, that we invest quite a bit of maintenance funding in to maintain during heavy rains. And
Right.
that is a section that we could add into the plan and use secondary 6-year plan funds for to hard surface and improve if the board wanted to. And we're also looking at a few roads that we could take those short segments and use maintenance funds to pave them if we need to, if we have to. So that was one route. We've got a few of those sections around the community that doesn't necessarily have the 50 vehicles per day based on the latest traffic count. And if the board wanted to consider one of those routes as a secondary 6-year plan alternate, we could follow up with traffic engineering, get them to go back out there and recount that section and do a quick traffic count before the public hearing in May or the public notice and give you some feedback. And if it meets that 50 vehicle per day threshold, then that could be one that we could include and use these district grant unpaved road funds for. If it doesn't, we could use telefee funds or see if we could come up at the residency level with some maintenance funds to hard surface that eroding segment. And again, we have a few of those.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure other people have some other things, but that's the one where I hear the most complaint. And I know you're spending a lot of maintenance funds up there, and so are the people that live there that try to keep it maintained, because the gravel and going up that hill, it just washboards over and over.
Yes, sir, it does. It does. There's a section of Chicken Mountain that we've got trouble with, the north side 635, up north of 20, up at the top of the hill, that one too, the switchbacks on the north side of the mountain, that's another one that we struggle with, keeping gravel and compaction on. So that Bushy Mountain is one of those routes that we spend a lot of time on. It's a frequent customer.
Yes. All right. Well, I've got my vote.
Anybody have anything else?
Alan, we had talked about, you and I talked about Jones Mill Road. Have you gone back and revisited that?
Jones Mill Road, the north section of Route 635.
Right. There was somebody up near the top of that was concerned about it, was looking to get something done up there. And I talked to you about it a couple months ago.
All right. The section along the top, Supervisor Johnson, we're trying to hard surface the segment along the top now and then find another solution for the back. While the ADT is high enough on that, the roadway geometry just doesn't meet any of the rural rustic road design criteria that we would need. We're struggling through there to get 14, 15 foot of pavement width in some locations, and can't get anywhere near the 18 feet, the drainage improvements. We'd have to cut down some trees and really do a lot of grading to get the north side of that slope to work. So that's one that we're looking at from the top section that becomes rough, where the pavement is a patch quit work up. We're going to try to use not unpaved road funds, but some of our residency level funds, maintenance funds, to try to overlay that and go as far down the backside as we can. The section that when you come off of Spicer's Mill and come south, before you get to the toe of the hill, that is a segment that has a high enough ADT that we could work into the secondary 6-year plan as an unpaved road. But getting past the toe of the slope up to the top of the hill, which is the segment that erodes the most, it doesn't meet the design criteria for the Rural Rustic Road Program. And we really need to look at another solution up there. Another color of funding to fix that.
All right. And so you're still working on a creative solution to that?
Yes, sir. We are.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Alan, I have a question for you on the Telefee funds. You and I have discussed any number of roads in my district and throughout the county that are not currently in the system. They're private roads that seem to meet the criteria for being adopted into the system. In some cases, there's some improvements needed. Can the Telefee funds be used to be part of a multi-year plan to bring those roads up to spec so that they could, when the funding is available, be adopted into the system?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We recently completed West Wind Drive, Route 1039. Now it has a route number out west of Orange as a rural addition project with Telefee funds. The next two, it's really the last two projects in your current approved secondary 6-year plan, Mountain View Court and Enchanted Way, are both private streets that once the funding allocation is available for expenditure in that fiscal year, which Mountain View Court should get the remainder of its funding this July, and Enchanted Way should get the remainder of its funding this July. So those are two private streets in the secondary 6-year plan that we have allocations funded to. And once the allocations hit, we're going to use those funds to make the improvements and bring those into the system. So,
Alan,
short answer, yes, sir.
Is that last bit of funding for that culvert, or is that culvert going to be under some different funding?
The culvert we're going to wait for.
Okay.
The water's
okay.
still going through it. Yeah, and we got an estimate from our pipe sleeving contractor, and it would probably take the bulk of the funds that are allocated to the project just to sleeve that culvert. So right now it's the only way in and out, so we can't open cut it. So we're going to push that off a little bit. Seems like it's still a ways from failure, and monitor that for the time being, just hard surface and make improvements to the top.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, Alan, one of the roads I had in mind is Harbor Drive, which you and I talked about a couple times. You've actually done some engineering work on that. I think it's one of on the auxiliary list. I don't have that in front of me, but I think it's on the auxiliary list now. But as I recall, there are several specific improvement projects that needed to be made along the various segments. And I was just trying to see if there's a way to slice that overall project into pieces and begin any activity at all on something like that. Because the traffic count, I think, is pretty high. I don't know, there must be 50 homes that road serves within a mile or two of its length.
And we typically gauge about up to 10 trips per day per home. So using that model, it does have quite a high ADT. And the Telefee funds that are in your plan and that are anticipated or stored in the balance entry accounts could be used to make improvements to a Harbor Drive and add that into the plan and get funds allocated to it.
Okay. Well, that's one that is at least in my district, a relatively high priority among all the roads, partly because of the amount of traffic that it handles.
Okay, so what do we have? 2 roads that we're looking at possibly adding then? One in Mr. Goodwin's district and one Mr. White's district.
I'm not sure I know what adding means at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I
Because it
don't
sounds like-
either.
I mean,
it's putting on the list is all.
Well,
Would that be correct, Alan?
Well, so what you're recommending is to add them into the secondary 6-year plan for FY 2026 as future projects, and then we would distribute the tele-fee funds that we are anticipating in FY26 and district unpaved grant funds across those two projects. So we
Well,
could give you a
I'm
funding
asking-
scenario for that.
Right, and what about Mr. Johnson with 635? Is that something you're covering differently or looking at? What?
Well, what we'd like to do on 635 is have a combination. So we can look at an estimate to do the short segment from, what is that, 633. I was looking, I know the route number. That's at Spicer's Mill Road, I'm sorry. From Spicer's Mill Road to the toe of the slope and get a distance for that. And it will be a short segment, but that floods pretty frequently. And if we hard surface that, it flooded yesterday. So that's a segment that we could make improvements on. But the segment from the toe of the slope up to the top of the hill and over the top, we do not have enough width in the roadway and would have to do a lot of grading to make that work under the Rural Rustic program. And we're looking to hard surface that segment from the toe of the slope on the north side up to the top of the hill with residency maintenance funds.
Okay.
Now that we've got our
Basically like a pave in place kind of thing.
yes, sir.
And Alan, did you say that would not need to be in the 6-year plan? That was going to be a combination of maintenance funds?
The pave in place funds would be maintenance funds, and we would use that from the toe of the slope on Jones Mill Road up to the top and over the top. But the segment from Spicer's Mill Road to the toe of the slope, and it's not that far. But
How far is it, Alan?
Probably 1,500 feet.
Okay.
Somewhere around quarter to a third of a mile. That would be a good candidate for rural rustic funding in your plan.
Did you say it would be or would not be a good candidate for rural rustic?
It would. The ADT on Jones Mill at the last count in 2017 was 60. So given the development on the western end of town and the frequency of a cut through there to 20, I think that if we counted that around rush hour, the count would be much higher than the 60 that's currently shown. So for the segment of it just below Spicer's Mill, along through the bottom, we could widen that, pave it in the secondary 6-year plan using secondary 6-year plan unpaved road funds. That little segment would be a good candidate. But once you get to the toe of the slope, up into the switchbacks and over the top, we would have to do a lot of grading and tree clearing just to be able to make that work. And we're going to try to use some other funds and just hard surface what's there within the footprint that we've got from the toe up over the top. Those are maintenance funds outside of your secondary 6-year plan.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Allison.
I was just going to recap that based on the current secondary 6-year plan that's contained in your packet materials, starting with Indian Town Road at the top and ending with West Wind Drive on page 3, those projects have been substantially completed, which leaves Mountain View Court and Enchanted Way remaining, or they have been funded, those projects prior to that. So it leaves Mountain View Court and Enchanted Way remaining, and then using the last year's fiscal year funds in the proposed allocation. What Alan's looking for is a consensus from the board on the projects to add so that he can provide me with, or so that he or Daryl can provide me with a draft 6-year plan to advertise for you all's public hearing. And based on the notes that I've taken, it's the identified portion of Bushy Mountain Road, which is not currently on the 6-year plan and not currently on the auxiliary list. It is the identified portion of Jones Mill Road, which is also not currently on the 6-year plan and not currently on your auxiliary list. And then Harbor Drive, which is on the auxiliary list.
Is there agreement among the board for this?
Yeah,
Well,
let's
is
go.
there a,
that's fine with me.
Mr. Johnson, what were you going to say?
well, I want to make sure we're sort of proceeding in order. We have the Allison in the secondary list or the queue or whatever you call it. What roads were on that?
So starting in order that they were added, we have Hawfield Road, which was a potential rural rustic project. Barnes Road, which is Route 605, as a rural rustic project. Reynolds Road, Route 698 as a rural rustic, and Tannery Road, Route 729 as a rural rustic. And then Independence Road, Oak Springs Road, and Harbor Drive as potential rural addition, meaning they're not currently in the 6-year, so they would be, or not currently in the secondary system, so they would be improved to the point of acceptance into the secondary system. And then we have Liberty Mills Road, Route 641 as a rural rustic, and Fieldstone Lane as a potential rural addition. So that's what's currently on your auxiliary list in the order that it was added.
Well, I'm fine with those 3 roads that we talked about, that Mr. Crozier laid out, but I just kind of wanted to know what we had on our standby list and want to make sure we're not forgetting something, not moving something up from there that should be. So.
Well, the one thing we had when I looked at adding Hawfield was a potential that was relatively inexpensive, and it was not doing the entire stretch of 666, but just a portion down to the water, or actually not even that far, because once you get down there, then you're talking bridge and you're talking lots of issues with water. So that was a short segment feeding off of 617, but no one has questioned about whether that should be done or not. So for me, putting Bushy Mountain ahead of it, I think would be a better idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with those 3 roads as long as that's good for everybody else.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Frame?
I
You
don't
good
have
with that?
I don't have an interest in this. I'll go with whatever anybody else wants.
Okay. Mr. White?
Yeah, I think adding the 3, that's fine.
Everyone already spoke, so I agree with it. So that's what we'll do.
Perfect. So that's the consensus for Alan to know, for Alan and Daryl to know how to act on getting the draft 6-year plan together for us to advertise. The last item on the cover memo that I provided to you all is a motion to schedule the public hearing for the secondary 6-year plan. At this point,
So moved.
okay, I have a motion by Mr. Frame, but at this point, what I'm recommending, because we're holding the meetings remotely and we're not certain when we'll be able to discontinue holding the remote meetings and return to our regular meeting logistics. What I'm recommending is we schedule the public hearing for 7 p.m. on Tuesday, May 12th. And VDOT has already agreed to have someone present to support that public hearing or make the presentation. And if we're having the meeting remotely, which I don't have any indication as to why we wouldn't. You all would open the public hearing that evening, receive your presentation from VDOT, have an opportunity for questions and discussion, and then we would open the public hearing and you would defer action until your second meeting in May, at which time you would adopt the secondary 6-year plan. And that still gives us adequate time to meet VDOT's adoption deadline.
All right, very good. We have a second?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the process we're going to have to use for all public hearings, as long as we're doing it electronically.
Yes, sir,
Correct.
that's correct.
All right. Let's do a roll call since we are instead of just a Allison, if you would.
Sure. I have a motion by Mr. Frame, seconded by Mr. Goodwin. And for the roll call, Mr. Frame,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Crozier,
Aye.
Mr. Goodwin,
Aye.
and Mr. White.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Very good. Alan, do you have anything else for us?
No, sir, not unless the board has any questions I can answer. Or we've got these route segments, and I'm looking forward to getting out of the house here in Glen Allen and doing these estimates myself. So we'll get the estimates prepped for these route segments and back to the board and Allison and be ready for the 12th. And if anything pops up in between, please contact me and let us know.
Fantastic. As always, we truly appreciate your time and efforts, Alan. It's a real
Oh, yes,
pleasure.
sir.
All
You as
right.
well. It's good to hear from everyone. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
For
Thank
joining
you,
us.
Alan.
Have a good Alan. Good
Yeah.
evening, Alan.
All right. And with that being said, we can go ahead and adjourn the work session, and we'll join back at 5 p.m.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay. Very good. See you all in a bit.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.